So originally I was going to do something kind of more team-focused, but I'm going to talk about pitching, but not necessarily how to pitch, like the order you should pitch in, but more of, especially for my journey, like the psychology behind pitching and how important having a good team is to actually being able to pitch your product successfully. So I'm going to start off with like being an introvert. I think there's a lot of like discussion around what introvert means. For me, it just means someone that might be a little bit quieter, sometimes enjoys alone time, and a lot of the things that I enjoy with social interactions isn't just the actual interaction, but I enjoy trying different things and seeing how people react. So since I was little, I was a lot more nervous with social interactions, but especially one-on-one, one thing that I like to do is introduce something, like either myself or just a topic or a story, and see how people reacted to it. And then meet someone new and introduce the exact same thing, but a slightly different way, and then see how they react to it then. And then kind of use all these little reactions that people give you to the way you explain something or the way you introduce yourself, and kind of build them, like build a little library in your head of what are good ways to introduce things, how do people react when I act a certain way or when I do a certain thing. And that kind of helps you interact with people one-on-one, but when you go to pitching, whether it's a product or whether it's yourself or whether it's anything, it's a lot harder to do the same thing with a crowd because you're not getting that same one-on-one feedback. So this is my 3-step plan for pitching. One is confidence, so you have to believe in what you're doing. So that could be believing in your startup wholeheartedly and believing in every part of it, or it could just be believing in yourself if you're trying to get a job or meet new people or something. Step 2, which was fundamental for me, was having a good team. So people around you are always going to want to help you when you're pitching, whether it's because it's personal to them, like your co-founder who really wants you to win a pitch or do well in a sales meeting, or whether it's just a friend who's trying to help you like get a job or something. It's important that people understand where you're coming from. And then the last one is obviously practice, which in my opinion is the least important, but I'll get to that later. So step 1 is confidence. So I've kind of spoken about this already, but confidence can come in a lot of different ways. So it can be confidence in the product. These are just like some things that I listed as potential things that you might lack confidence in. I think it's really important not to start pitching too aggressively too early, because if you put yourself out there in a position where you can maybe look bad, that can kind of scare you away from pitching to large groups. So I know for myself personally, or for anyone else that might be nervous about pitching to large groups, it's really important to like get feedback and then build on that very slowly and gradually, and not kind of try and climb to the top really quickly and then get pushed back down. So step 2 is team. So when I first started my startup around 2 years ago, I had a lot of different people trying to give me feedback on how to pitch. And I never started a startup before. I didn't really know anyone else who was in startups. So I just kind of assumed that everyone I met knew better than me. And I would take every piece of advice that I got, and a lot of people like to pretend that they know more than you do. I'm sure everyone else has had this experience too. And a lot of people want to give you advice on every topic. I don't think I've had a single time that I've pitched and asked for feedback and had someone say, I'm not really sure what to say, I don't know this area as well as you do. So this is probably the single biggest piece of advice I would give, is that you really need to know what kind of feedback you're looking for and if that person's eligible to give you feedback. And then also the person that you're talking to. So when I first started, I had a co-op student who was very opinionated and who liked to give me every piece of feedback possible and who would try and decide for me what was best, what was the best way for me to present, what was the best way for me to word things or say things. But this goes back to confidence, because if you're not confident in the way that you're presenting something, you're not going to be confident saying it. So you'll be doubting in the back of your mind, like, is this really what I want the product to be? And then the person that you're pitching to will see that lack of confidence or that stuttering or however it may manifest itself, and that'll lead to a shitty pitch. So this is a photo of me and my co-founder. He was recently helping me a lot with my pitching, and I super appreciate it because he's awesome. So then going with team, some other things you would want to discuss with your team that I think are important to talk to every co-founder about, or even a lot of different relationships, oh, battery's sliding away, are roles and boundaries. So where you see yourselves and like type of thing, like is there something that you're uncomfortable with or don't like to do or talk about, and understanding that from both people's perspectives. Mutual respect, so kind of the same thing, but understanding kind of people's different backgrounds, especially when you get to like a more intense work environment like a startup. And then your definitions of success and failure. So for some people, especially people who like the idea of a startup, their idea of success might be making a lot of money. But for other people, it could just be building a really amazing product. And I think if you have a mutual understanding with the people you're working with of what your terms of success are, then you can go out and pitch to people and in the back of your mind know that you're super successful because you're matching your own definitions of success, and that will lead to a more confident, stronger pitch. So these are some practice things that I've tried in the past. Videotaping myself, trying new locations in front of new people. But again, I think the most important thing that I've learned so far is not to accept everyone's advice and never to let anyone decide how you practice best or how you work best. And this was a photo of our most recent successful pitch, which was the VFFs. Thank you.